Hi everyone. Today I am joined with Kyle Roof, an absolute legend of the SEO industry. And to make matters a little bit worse for Kyle, I got him on the podcast and I told him that when we start the video, I wanted him to promote some of his tools because I don't feel like he promotes it well enough. He gives so much value to everyone up on stage and doing podcasts. And then it's just a secondary at the end. He'll mention, oh, by the way, I own Page Optimizer Pro. Oh, by the way, I've got IMG for training and courses and for testing. So what I did was in today's episode is I got him to initially speak about all the services and products that he has. And believe it or not, the first 30 minutes didn't record. So Kyle took the opportunity to promote like the pop features, like within Page Optimizer Pro. I don't know if people know this or not, but there's something called Watchdog. Now, Watchdog is absolutely brilliant, right? You set it up for your pages, and when there's an intent shift or you drop in rankings significantly and the SERPs are all changing with who's coming in, it'll send you an alert. So what it allows you to do is go back into the page and re-optimize that page and give a content freshness element to try to start improving the pages that has gone and dropped off. That's a feature within Page Optimizer Pro called Watchdog. Strongly recommend everybody setting that up on their websites. There's another big feature with regards to EEAT, and he's actually got the next gen version of EEAT. With regards to just ticking all the boxes. He says that EAT isn't a direct ranking factor, but from a trust point of view, when Rater Hub starts to come and visit your site, you should have all those tick boxes done, having a contact number, having multiple email addresses, and lots of other things that Page Optimizer Pro comes back with that you should have. Not to mention the Page Optimizer Pro on-page optimization. It's edge analysis. It's not just correlation. It shows you where you're going to get best bang for your buck in getting terms in exactly the right places, which could be a H2 tag, a H3 tag, in the opening sentence, what entities are missing using NLP categorization, what is needed on the page. Now, these tools are absolutely brilliant. They're very innovative. Kyle tests every single day the algorithms of what is working and what's not working. Now, I got Kyle to talk about all of this, and within Riverside, it didn't record. So there's obviously something out there which doesn't want Kyle promoting these products. So I'm going to have the recordings that are going to start in a minute between me and Kyle. I'm just giving you the introduction here of what wasn't recorded. It was 30 minutes full of knowledge bombs. I apologise for this not being part of the podcast. There's still 40 minutes of gems that talk about the current state of the SEO industry, the Google leaks, and lots of other things. There's some quick fire questions with what Kyle thinks is better with regards to content and backlinks and lots of other questions that I hit him with. But I just feel a little bit sorry because I wanted him to promote IMG, which is where he has a lot of training courses. I strongly recommend people to go and check that out with regards to different courses via different people that are at the top of their game that teach things that's working in today's algorithms. There's also then the single variable testing that he does, and you get full access to all of the results of what's working again in today's algorithms. Not what Google's telling you works, but what's working in the algorithms physically by these tests that are happening. I strongly recommend anyone who watches this, if they see any value when he's on, if you've not got Page Optimizer Pro, to sign up. If you're not signed up to IMG, to sign up. I wanted him to promote it himself because I didn't feel like he does it enough on stage and in other places. And I want Kyle to do amazing with everything of what he's doing because the amount of training that he does for the SEO communities is second to none. He's an unbelievable guy. And without further ado, I'll get the recording now starting up in a second that will introduce, well, it won't really introduce, it'll just be halfway through a podcast that just start asking him questions. because the first part didn't record properly. So apologies on my behalf for that, but here it is where I'm firing some questions over with Kyle Roof. So Kyle, in your opinion then, what would you be doing with regards to a site that's being hit with the helpful content update?
So because there hasn't been any recovery that we know of, it's where you can say like, I did this and this definitely happened. And there's been people here and there saying some things, but nothing concrete. I think, as I mentioned earlier, you really want to know, is it the site that Google hates or is it the content? And so what I would do is I'd take content, I'd put it somewhere else on a site that wasn't hit, that's in the same niche, and see if you recover the rankings. And if you do recover, then I think it's the issue that Google hates the site. Now, what I think, as we discussed, I think that's going to put you you're on a naughty list, is what I think has happened. And they have, I don't think that's a problem for them to put sites on the naughty list. And from there, though, like, what should you do? What should you do now? One option is just hang on to the site, because in a matter of, but what could be years, it will come back. But old school SEO Bill Hartzer had a thing about domain. So he's a domain expert, and he's consulted on a lot of things with a lot of people about domains. And I remember him talking about, Google doesn't want to penalize a new site owner. Let's say, you've done something naughty, you let the site go, and then I see it, and I'm like, oh, hey, that's a great domain name. I'd love to buy it. Google doesn't want to penalize me. I'm a bona fide purchaser. I shouldn't be tarnished with something that somebody else has done. And so he was talking about the idea of changing owners, like actually sell the site, change the owners, and that actually might get rid of the penalty. Now, there are unscrupulous ways to do that, which he said will also work. And so that was for penalties from back at the Penguin Panda days, and how he was able to recover some sites would simply sell them and change the ownership. So you're going to let the site drop. You're going to then have somebody else purchase it. The registry is going to change. The ownership name is going to change. It actually used to be a thing within Google saying, like, I've moved this site, but I think way back in the day, you could even say, like, hey, I'm a new owner. I'm not sure they've got that I don't think they've got that anymore, but I think a change in the registry would be something else that I would consider on how to perhaps recover a site.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think there's a few people at present that are midway through doing that technique and doing some 301s, also trying some where it's not 301, but it's canonical in from one website to another website, stuff like that. But again, I'm yet to see any concrete evidence of any sort of full recovery. But let's move on. Google leak. What's your thoughts on the Google leak? Oh, sorry, did I butt in then with regards to, have you got anything to add on what I was saying on that with regards to like canonicals or 301s?
Google's always said they don't respect cross-domain canonicals, so it would be interesting to see if that actually does anything. The hop or the double hop technique would also be interesting to see if that works, where you go to a very similar domain name through maybe an intermediary, very similar domain name, and through. I did that like 7 years ago, and it worked, and it was fun. I found with every update, more old school spam seems to work, because I think the people that like fixed something, and then you've got people that don't know what that fix was, and like, I don't know what this code is, and they take it out, and then spam works again. Which is also Bill Hart's line, by the way. So I think maybe some of those older techniques might work again if they were not working, simply because the code has changed so much, and maybe superfluous code, or what looked like superfluous code, has been removed by newer engineers. So I would give all those old techniques a try.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, some of the legacy code within Google has definitely been removed on certain things, but
we shall see
where the fun begins.
Yeah.
The latest Google leak, what's your thoughts on it? There's a lot of people kind of shouting and screaming, see, I was right all along. There is elements of confirmation bias. They're physically looking for something specifically that they've been talking about. But is there any juicy bits in there that you've taken from the Google leak? Like, what's your thoughts overall about the Google leak?
There are a couple elements, like with click data. I think they even mentioned keyword density in there, where Google has said repeatedly that those things just simply aren't part of the algorithm. And I think they've also said and never have been, kind of a quote, something to that effect. And what's interesting is that we've got this list, and Google says yes, that is a list of factors. Now, how strong they are when they're in play, that's a whole other conversation. But what it does appear is that they've been very dishonest about some factors at being present or being possible. I don't think you'd have a list of things that we don't do. Here's a list of things that we don't do. In between lists of things that they do. So at some point, and let's say in the most generous reading of it, we actually don't use those factors anymore. We used to, or they were part of something, and they don't exist anymore. But they've been pretty clear that some of these things have never been part of the algorithm. They're nothing you should ever worry about. And it appears that at some point they, at a minimum, were, right? But it seems to me that they're probably, all those factors are in play at some point in time, depending on the SERP and depending on the keyword. So it really does feel like they've been more than dishonest, that it's been direct lies. And that's, that's kind of the thing that I know that we felt for a long time. Obviously Google said this, I tried that and got the opposite result, of what they said should happen. So I did see some, Google talking heads say that, well, I think lie's a strong word. And I was like, I don't think it's strong enough. Because it's like, what's the point of having a mouthpiece for Google? You really have to think about it. Their point is to aid, at least from what their mandate is, right? To aid SEOs to help understand, provide some clarity. And if they're doing the opposite of that, then you know that their goal wasn't to provide clarity or to provide some direction, or at least to be a sounding board for some things, if they're not going to be completely honest. And I understand, should they give away the algorithm? Absolutely not. Are they under any obligation to tell you? Absolutely not. But as soon as they start saying things and saying, like, this is how it is, or this is what you need to worry about, and it turns out that information is incorrect, then you know that they're there to provide that misinformation. That's the point of it. I've always thought, something that's very analogous is, they've got those AdWords helpers, people that'll help you do AdWords. There's no way that they are there to help you crush AdWords. Like, there are only so many ad spots, so there's no way they want to give you the information that's going to get you to the number one spot every time. What's better for them is to, instead of like 5 people killing AdWords, is to have 20 people all doing mediocre. And so you have to figure that the point of that isn't to be helpful to help you kill it, it's to help you get into mediocre. Because that makes them more money. There are more people spending. It feels like there's got to be something analogous here with the mouthpieces that they have, is that the goal isn't to help you do great SEO. The point is to help you do mediocre SEO. Yeah. Kind of get you into the middle, because they can't help somebody get a real edge on everybody else. And so maybe the information they're giving from their perspective is to balance things, like, oh, yeah, you think you figured that out now, don't worry about that. Because they know if some people take that and run with it, they're going to do better than others. And so maybe the real goal of their whole mouthpiece was just this balancing, and that's why they have no problem giving misinformation, because they see it's in the best interest of all parties involved. So that's kind of where I'm guessing they're coming. But I would call it a lie. I'd call it misinformation. I'd call it pretty disgusting. And people that are still defending it they already know they're on the wrong side of it. And now I think they're trying to figure out how they can say that they weren't on the wrong side of it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy how it's all come about, and like you said, just to straight out lie about certain things isn't the right thing. I don't mind him saying we can't disclose that information, but not give information that's just completely dishonest. It's not the right way of doing things. But
I knew things were suspect when, like, they would ask it, and then, like, John Mueller would respond with something along the lines of, well, in my opinion. Well, in your opinion, what? Like, couldn't he be like, just like lean out the, hey, Bill, is this a factor? Like, why on earth does he have any opinions about anything? It shouldn't be an opinion based. But that's when I realized, if he's just giving his opinion about things, that means he doesn't know, or they don't want him to give a clear answer. And I was like, that's the absolute wrong thing to look at it as a transparent mouthpiece that's going to tell you what's actually going on with Google.
Yeah. I think at times it's easy to, like, scapegoat, let's say, John Mueller and stuff like that, but I'm sure he's probably fed some misinformation along the lines that I don't know whether it's just him damn right kind of lying about it, or whether he's fed information from the Google engineers that's misinformation and he's sharing information that's actually not the way that it works. It's an interesting.
Is it true that he's scrubbing tweets? I heard that. I didn't
Yeah.
see it for myself.
Yeah.
But that's not a good look.
No.
I mean, I haven't gone in and checked that for myself, but I've heard that from a few different sources that they're scrubbing tweets, and I'm like, that is a pretty awful look.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, let's move on. Artificial intelligence, it's in and around us everywhere now. Images, videos, content. We're using it for lead segmentation and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on AI specifically? Let's start with the content. What's your thoughts on that?
AI is a tool, and the version that we have now will not be the version we're using in a year. So you cannot get tool dependent. You need to get concept dependent. You have to have the framework for what you're trying to do. And I think now would be the time to really learn how to do prompts and how to learn to do that stuff on your own. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is you become dependent on another tool that's using AI. There's obviously things you can't do because what it does best is processing massive amounts of information very quickly. I mean, that's why a tool like Pop is great, or any of the other on-page tools are great, because you could go in and do all the manual counting yourself. The point of those tools is to speed up that process. If you think of AI as a tool that speeds up processes, then you're in good shape. And I think learning prompts and how it can think and its restrictions and its restraints and what it can and can't do, that's going to be very valuable. And so I would spend my time learning that, using it for like that first draft of content. What I think AI content has done is killed that like 3-cent a word typewriter out of the Philippines. That's what it's done, because it's, in my opinion, very similar content from what you were getting from those folks. And really then what you need to do is edit for brand, facts, proprietary data, uniqueness, tone, etc. And then you've got a finished product. So that's where I think in terms of content that it's at 70% of the way, regardless of the tool you're using. You still need to edit for a lot because it can't get specific. It doesn't know your brand very well. It doesn't know actual facts very well. It's not, a lot of it, some new tools are going onto the web and finding some information, but it's still not super great. So anything you can do to speed things up, anything you do faster, and especially in content, that's what I would use it for. And I wouldn't get locked into this is the only tool I'm going to use for the rest of my life, because things will change quite quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So are you an advocate then that we should be embracing AI overall, not just for content, but just in general for any way of life of speeding up things, trying to improve things? Obviously, there's certain things to do with, like, it can create decent Python code, it can create your calculators and stuff like that. Are you trying to integrate it within your business?
I would be careful with that, because it's not a science book or a math book, it's an English book.
Yeah.
And so while it can do some of that, I would be very, very careful relying on it for that. Once the science book version comes out or the math book version comes out, then yeah, that'd be cool. But they won't, because these are all language models. Yeah. So be very... don't use one thing for another field entirely.
Yeah.
At least to rely on it. So I would be careful there. But, repetitive tasks, things that you are constantly doing, an AI can probably step in and do a lot of that for you. And that's where I would look to get edges. Like right now I'm playing with I don't have a solution yet, but I watched Gail Brenton from Authority Hackers show how he's doing, those are emails that just need like a one sentence reply, like received. Or like somebody asks like, hey, can you send over a headshot and a description so we can put this on the website? Those kind of emails, I get a bunch of those every day. AI can handle that for you. And what he's done is he's gone through and set up so that he gets, when he wakes up in the morning, he's got like 30 draft emails, and he just has to click send on it, because the AI has gone through, read it, okay, this is the answer I think you need to put in there. And that's a massive time saver. And so that's where I would really try to implement those repetitive tasks, things that you're doing. You can train an AI to handle that for you, and that's where I would really focus my time, because then that's going to be a time saver for you to do something else. Yeah,
for sure. Moving on, debunking any SEO myths in the industry. Obviously, there's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of people sharing things either on stage or online or on videos that isn't always correct. Is there any that shout and scream out to yourself of what people... Obviously, we've just spoke about Google sharing misinformation, but like Is there any like similar things that you're seeing where someone's gone and added one and one together and got 10 and then go and shout and scream from it, or correlation doesn't mean causation and stuff like that?
You know, I'll tell you when you know you're hearing nonsense. It's when somebody says with certainty, this is how it is, and they don't show you anything.
Yeah.
You know, they don't show you that they did something. Now, somebody may or may not like a test that I've done, and that's totally fine. But that gives a conversation starting point. Now show me what you did. I'm happy to see what you did, and maybe we can see where the difference is, or maybe I'm wrong. That's where the conversation needs to be. I did this, and it doesn't have to be a super scientific single variable in the lab. You know, just a case study. You know, I did this 10 times, and I got 8 results that look like this. That's awesome, because then you're showing something, and then we can have a conversation about it. But you see in a lot of those major publications in our industry, is this a ranking factor? And they'll say, definitely not. And the reason that it's not a ranking factor is because Google said this one thing one time in a tweet, and then it feels like this over here, and so it's definitely not a factor. And I'm like, well, that's literal garbage, and is unhelpful. It could be correct, but it when it doesn't provide anything like I did this and this was the result. I played with this over here. I tried to isolate this factor and do it this way. And they have nothing to show, then you know it's nonsense. And those are the ones that I end up debunking regularly, or just, this isn't a factor. I'm like, okay, but you didn't do anything. You know, you listen to a couple tweets, and we know how honest those tweets are now. And then you spoke to somebody over here one time, and they said this, but they didn't do anything. And so that kind of like echo chamber nonsense is just going to be a waste of time, and it's probably going to be wrong. It's going to be wrong most of the time.
What do you mean when you've said about miscommunication with ivory tower SEOs and the definition of spam?
You know, this took me a long time. So people think I'm a black hat SEO, and it really confused me. Because I'm not. I do white hat techniques. I have real companies that I work with that can't get anywhere near a gray line, right? And what I realized is that because I don't just believe Google, I'm a heretic. You know, like that I would even consider running a test. You know, and then maybe that test it would be considered black. Like if I test cloaking, for example, sure, that's outside the guidelines. But I'm not testing cloaking to trick anybody. I'm testing cloaking to see if it works. You know, what will this actually do? And I realize that people think that if you don't accept Google exactly as Google has said, you know, or at least as they have perceived it, and you have the gall to run a test, you're a black hat. But then I was thinking about one step farther, where I was watching some presentations on spam, and they were talking about these black hat techniques, and then they showed the results in the SERPs, and they're saying this is the result of a black hat technique. And I was like, well, what's the content? Because spam and black hat are not the same word.
Yeah.
What if you had the cure for cancer and you needed to get it out as fast as possible? Would you build a website from scratch? You know, no, you do anything and all things to get it out. So like maybe use a black hat technique to rank that cure for cancer, but the content itself is not spam. If you spend $1,000 to get a parasite up on Forbes, I guarantee that's probably going to be a pretty good article. And it's going to answer whatever question anybody had about that particular thing, because you're not going to put up some garbage after you spent so much money to get a placement somewhere. And so what I realized is that a lot of the ivory tower SEOs conflate black hat with spam. Just because somebody used a black hat technique, and whether that's right or wrong is a different conversation. But I'm talking about the content itself, because people are like, oh, the results are getting worse. And I'm like, you know, Google might have removed a lot of spam. It might have gotten there because of black hat, but it was actually really good info. You know, that actually satisfied what the searcher was looking for, and it was provided the information. And then this other content that remains after you remove it is not that great.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same quality because somebody took the time to get this great piece up there. They wrote a really good piece. They gave really good information. And so it was really interesting where what I'm calling like ivory tower people that only work on like DR70 sites. And like, all you have to do is this, and it's so easy. Well, screw off. Like, of course, anything you do to a DR70 site is going to work. You don't need backlinks? That's crazy. You're beyond backlinks. Of course you don't need. But it's a really interesting idea of if you do something black hat, then the result is spam. Yeah. And that isn't true. And also, if you don't believe Google and you test something that you're black hat, which also isn't true. And that's why I realize you've got these SEOs over here, and that's what they think. They think if you test something, if you don't believe in your heart that this, Bible that they've given us called the guidelines isn't exact, and like the interpretation from the apostles in their blogs, if you don't believe that with all your heart, then you're black hat, which is silly. And then on the other hand, if you've done something black hat, then the result must be spam. And again, I don't do black hat techniques. I'm not doing that to put in, but if somebody has done that, but the content is good, then that's not spam. And then there are two different issues going on, and I realize that's the miscommunication, because I know that a lot of people that put content out there that maybe do things outside the guidelines, they know the content isn't spam. Spam is crap content that's taking up space and it isn't providing any value. But if you're providing value, that's not spam. And that's where I realize that miscommunication is happening between these two kind of groups. They're like, because people might be like, sure, I use a technique that you don't like, but my content is better than yours. And that doesn't make it spam just because of the technique that was used. And I realize that that's the misinformation or the miscommunication that's happening between a lot of camps, is identifying that black hat doesn't equal spam content, and that not believing also doesn't make you black hat.
So moving on then, Kyle, let's talk about the current state of the SEO industry. Because something that I would say is that I've heard you talking on stage, and we share a very, very close, the same opinion with regards to, I always say, more millionaires are made in the recession. And I remember you on stage saying, when there's blood on the streets, it's the best time to buy. So, and I think we're in that position now. I think we're just within the SEO community, we're suffering from a recession. There's a lot of bad stigma at the moment around the Google leak, around affiliate sites being hit. I know I speak to a lot of different link building agencies, and generally speaking, across the board, they're down. A lot of them are down like 35 to 40%. Some are actually in the recession actually doing well and actually growing, but a lot across the board are down, and it's mainly because affiliates now that have been hit hard, that was earning a lot of money, have just stopped buying at present, and they've looked at traffic diversity and stuff like that, and people are saying there's volatile search engine results pages. So what's your thoughts on this? Like, let's talk about when you say in the sentence, when there's blood on the streets, it's the best time to buy.
Yeah, so I think in like 2018, 2019, we saw a real surge in SEO, and people doing their own sites, and people, agencies starting and services provided. And then COVID happened in 2020, and people can't leave the house. And I think they all started side projects. They were all SEO side projects, putting up websites and services and stuff like that. It was inevitable that there was going to be a crunch. And it kind of came in one big motion with like HCU, with AI stuff coming out, and then with the March core. And then that really, I think, brought things to a screeching halt for a lot of people. This was going to happen. And what we're in now is this kind of this recession time in terms of people getting out of SEO, and where service providers like my tool or with links and stuff like that, the link builders you mentioned, they're seeing that crunch because you got that segment, especially like the affiliate segment that's being removed. They were buying a lot of services, and so there's going to be kind of that downside. But there's going to be more down, and I see in the next 3 to 6 months, people will still continue to get out. But in that process of them getting out, that's where there's more opportunity. We in a sense needed people to get out to clear the field, because then once things recover, and things will recover, and things have always recovered. Once things come back just a little bit, when you're still there, then that's the opportunity. And so I think in the next little bit, people will be offloading sites. People will be, service providers will be getting out. People who are doing small agency work will be getting out. And that reduction of people in those areas, and then an increase in available properties, that's the opportunity. And I think if you keep an eye on those kind of things, you'll be in good shape. So if you can weather the storm, you can weather this time period, and then get through it, you're going to be in great shape. And once that recovery starts again, you're just going to be in a great spot. Even better if during the downturn, if you can pivot a little bit, if you can take what you're doing and provide what the market needs in this downturn, then you can do really, really well. And that's the reason that we're offering that package that I mentioned for people that I need time to scale my business, not do the on page. That's where we realize there might be a gap in the market for people that need that. or I need somebody to show me the SEO that I need to do based on these reports rather than me digging through because I don't have the time to do it because I have to do something else. I need to run my plumbing business. That's why we're offering that type of a product to fill that in this downturn time because we think that's what people needs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, the current state at present it's definitely on a lull, it's definitely on a down. But like you said, this in the recessions where more millionaires have been made than ever before. So
just a little ingenuity, ingenuity, and you can make a lot of money. You can do very, very well, and then you're positioned. Then you're in the right spot for them when things swing back up again. Then you're really in the right spot.
Yeah, but outside of, let's say, the current state, when there were still a lot of times that people jump from one training course to the next training course, and I want to talk a little bit about. I always talk about the 3 Ps: prioritization, a perfectionist, and someone who procrastinates. In my opinion, when I share masterminds with people that don't seem to grow, seem to suffer from 1, 2, or even all 3 of those kind of points. The ones that kind of get to a point where they do grow and they're flatline and they can never get past, let's say they get to £10,000 a month, and they always go, I just can't seem to get past this. I lose a client, I win a client, I lose a client, I win a client, and they're like, well, you're probably losing them because you're at the threshold of how many clients you can deal with regards to your processes, your systems, you're scaling out a team and having all that being set up correctly. What's your thoughts on why one, touching upon any of the things that I've spoke about there, but why most SEOs, why SEOs fail if they do fail? Obviously, some of them just continuously seem to do great and always do great, but they seem to understand management, the culture of making certain that your staff is good, and they understand knowing how to scale. But what's your major reasons of why you see other people that fail?
A big thing, in addition to what you mentioned, is inaction, just purely not doing anything. Worrying about SEO and doing SEO are 2 different things. Yeah. And often when they don't know the best course of action, or there are too many courses that you can take, too many options, they don't choose any of them and end up failing as a result. And so I see that a lot, like that analysis paralysis. I'm worrying about it, I'm looking at it, I'm staring at Search Console or my rank trackers or whatever, but you're not actually doing SEO. Or they do like one little thing and they half-ass it. And then they're like, I did it all. I tried it all. Nothing worked. Well, okay, well, that little thing, maybe. So, but when you're talking about like the scaling issue or like getting past that threshold, that comes down to SOPs. It has to. That you should not be doing all the work. And what my guess is in those situations is they're doing all the work. And as a result, they don't have the time to do the outreach for more clients. Because they themselves haven't passed off that work to somebody else. So you have to give that work away so that you can then scale and grow the business. And you should have SOPs that a well-trained Cocker Spaniel can follow. Yeah. Like it really needs to be step by step by step so that somebody can step in and do all that work. The initial thing is just have whoever's doing that job. Let's say you've got a VA doing something, make them do the SOP. Then you can see if there are gaps in their game. That'll help speed things along. But whoever's doing the task, do the SOP the next time. Just the next time you're doing it, just write it down step by step. Don't leave any room for interpretation. This is how it's going to be done. And if there is an A or B situation, if you see this, then you do that. If you see that, then you do that. There's a lot less of that than people think. In their minds, they think like, oh, but you have to look at this, you have to decide that. Not really. Yeah. There are interpretation times, but there are ways to do that, and you can SOP all of that. And the more you can do, the more you can scale.
Sounds good. Right. Anyway, I asked the community on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and I got quite a few DMs for questions to ask you. So we're going to go quick fire questions, and then
let's do it.
You can go through it. So, Kyle, you can ask a Google engineer one question on how the algorithms work. What do you ask him?
I want to know when concurrent factors kick in. Because there are times, you could do something and it's not going to work, and it's not going to work because another factor isn't present. So when are concurrent, what's the first one? I want to know the first one that it kicks off. Is it a threshold with traffic? Is it the type of keyword? Is it some combination? I want to know what is the first concurrent factor that kicks off. And then we can get some knowledge out of that and grow it. Because then we can start to say like, okay, we know we don't need to spend time on this in this SERP because those factors don't exist here. And we can just focus on this. On the other hand, we know we need to work doubly hard over here because these things are in play. We need to worry about these concurrent factors. So that's what I'd like to ask about.
So on that leads on nicely to the next one, actually. Right, you previously said with Gail Breton that the absence of a ranking factor is the number one ranking factor. Do you still stand by that statement? And obviously, you was then talking about co-concurrent kind of factors and stuff like that. Is that what your still philosophy is within the team and what you're...
That comes from Lee Witcher, who's a very smart SEO, really bright guy, has a lot of good things to say, and he found that several years ago. And yeah, so it's the idea of, let's say there are 10 things you need to do. Should you hone in and nail 4 or 5 of them, or should you do a little bit on all of them? And what it comes out to is you should do a little bit in all of them. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And it goes along the lines with some tests that I ran from years and years and years ago. You can't swap signals. You can't replace one signal. Let's say you see that you need X number of H2s and X number of H3s. Let's say 3 and 3. You can't do 6 of 1.
Yeah.
You need to do 3 and 3. And that's a critically important note. Like, you have to fulfill what Google is expecting for each of those signal areas. And you can still win. Don't get me wrong. You can still win with the 6, but you will do better, and you have a better chance of winning and ranking higher if you do the 3 and 3.
Yeah. Kyle, you are able to turn the dial up or down on a specific ranking factor within the algorithms. What would you do and why?
I've been saying this and thinking this for years. They should do better measuring clicks on links. That would eliminate all spam. Let's say you've got a link on a DR10 and 50 people have clicked through it. And then you've got a link on a DR80 and nobody's seen it. Which is actually more valuable to the web? It's the link on the DR10. Raise that one up and give that priority. And don't worry about and ignore the DR80. And it appears from the leak, actually, they have the ability to do this. And might do it in certain situations. I think it would eliminate all spam and would actually be a more fair representation. I know the original concept of Google was that links are votes. And essentially they've said that this person has looked at that site, they've got their content, realized it'd be good if people will go, and they've done an editorial process voting for that site. But we know in reality that's not how it works.
Yeah.
At all. That's a grand idea that just isn't reality. So, but what is reality is people do click on links and they go to different places. So if they evaluated how many people are actually coming through a particular link, they could see if that link is valuable or not, give it a weighting, and then that would, I think, eliminate nearly all spam, level the playing field, get rid of a lot of the problems and headaches that they have, and actually make it better for all people involved. So that's what I would do.
Do you think the reason why they might not do that, because that just seems like a very logical answer, do you think the reason why they might not be doing that is because of the money it might cost to track information and data?
It's a money. I think they feel that they're getting an approximate result with what they have, and so it's just a cost issue.
So I mean, because obviously they have got, I don't know whether it's in play or not, but they've got the reasonable surfer pattern that what's the likeliness of them clicking on that link. So obviously it's the bottom of the 5,000 word article. They're saying if it's at the top, it's got more likely that it's going to be clicked. Therefore, it now passes more weight and stuff, and that's kind of what they're trying to do. But it's just a prediction model testing game as opposed to whether the page has got clicks going through to it or not. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think traffic through your links should bear more weight than what the DR is of the site, so to speak.
Yep, exactly.
So I'll move to one of the questions halfway down on it. Because one of them then says, if you feel that is important, do you also try to make certain within your agency that obviously you're using Page Optimizer Pro to optimize your content, but what I find is a lot of people don't try to optimize their guest posts. Are you always trying to optimize your guest post and rank the guest posts? Almost, I'm not saying like a parasite SEO article, but you're trying to rank the guest post to give it actual chances that it could then get the traffic through to your website.
I think that's a much better play. I think that's the right play. Obviously, that's more expensive and takes more time. But if you can do that, I think you're going to end up with better results. So I would recommend doing it.
Intent. can you break the SERP if you feel that the current intent that it's showing isn't the right intent? Now, obviously, Google are using a lot of like behavioral signals and stuff like that to say what is needed. They're throwing a wild card to see like what do we feel the intent for that search is. Is there ways that you know that you can break the SERP that for an intent shift?
I've heard you talk about this. I personally haven't been able to do it. So my answer from my experience is no, I don't think you can teach Google anything new. My unpopular opinion is I don't believe in intent. I don't think we need to think of the intent of the person searching. We need to think of what Google thinks the intent is, and that's what Google's showing, and that's what I would work is giving Google a page that it's expecting. I think you've talked about being able to change maybe what shows up in the SERPs in terms of like the style of page, essentially the intent of what that person is looking for. But I personally haven't had any success doing that.
Yeah, on my front, it's via doing mass different signals. But yeah, it's a tricky way. I just didn't know whether you could try to break it using any methods with regards to perfectly optimized pop or anything.
I really would try to avoid trying to teach Google something new. You know, yeah. I would look at what's there, and then I would focus on giving Google what it's expecting.
So imitate and then just improve upon, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is more important in your opinion? You have to choose one. This is what's come from one of the things: content or links?
Content. I've fired 20,000 links at a blank, and you can't get it to rank for anything.
That's a great answer. Building links for e-commerce. Do you hate pages? Do you hate links to product pages, just the homepage, category, or do you sprinkle it everywhere?
If I have to choose one of those, I'll do the homepage because you probably have decent enough navigation that it's going to get through where you need to go. If I could choose two, then I'd go to a category page, and then I'd get more specific after that. But if I had to choose one, I'd just do the homepage.
Yeah. Do you try to optimize your guest post to rank? We spoke upon that. Content freshness. Is there a specific time you should be updating your content? Every 3 months, every 6 months? I think I know what you're going to say here. Every 12 months, or I'm going to add a little bit to the end of it, or do you just set up Pop Watchdog, and then that will tell you when to do it?
If you don't have a method, I would be evaluating things every 3 months. If you don't have a method, but obviously, if you've signed on to the most powerful on-page tool in the history of on-page tools, then you're fine with Watchdog. It'll tell you when you need to do it.
Do no-follow links work as part of your link building? Yes or no?
Absolutely, they do. But there's a concurrent factor. The page that's sending the no-follow needs to be getting traffic.
Masterminds or conferences, which do you prefer?
Oh, I know you're a mastermind guy. I can't stand them. I'll take the conference. You know, I like them fine. It's just they take a lot of energy. They take a lot of energy because you want to be invested, you want to help people, you want to be in it, and I often don't have that energy because of like I'm speaking or I'm organizing something, and it takes a lot for me to do it. So just for that reason, I'll take the conference.
Do you know what? I've slightly changed my tune a little bit, right? I've said a lot about masterminds are so much better than conferences.
You're the mastermind guy.
But recently I've been to 1 or 2 conferences, and there's been some great speakers, and I've enjoyed listening to the talk. And I've been in 1 or 2 masterminds where, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, I'm the most intelligent person in the room. And it obviously wasn't a very intelligent room. So, but that's not a good mastermind at that point. So at that point, I feel like I've been spoiled over the years with some amazing people that I've shared a room with, and you've elevated each other's knowledge and shared information. And I think recently, some of the masterminds I've been in haven't been very high level, so to speak. Some of the talks I've watched at conferences have been very good. So I have kind of changed my tune a little bit. I still prefer masterminds, if I'm being honest, but you need to be in the right room with the right people. Let
me qualify. I want the conference hallway. I want the networking in the conference hallway. Also, though, at SEO Estonia, we did. I was like, okay, we're going to do the James Dooley twist. And we had the go around, everybody talks for 5 minutes first so you know what people are doing at the table. I gave you credit for innovating the mastermind. You have advanced the world of masterminds with your techniques.
Best SEO conference in the world. If you can only attend one, for the people that have never been to one, which one would it be?
Oh, you're hurting me, man. I own a conference. It's got to be. It's got to be Chiang Mai SEO. I will plug SEO Estonia if you can't get all the way to. It's so far away. Who can go there? But you can probably get to Estonia if you're in Europe or the US. But I think the gold star is Chiang Mai SEO for sure.
So Chiang Mai SEO you feel is the best in the world, but obviously you have founded SEO Estonia, and
there are 800 people in that room. And then on top of that, there's got to be like another 1,500, 2,000 SEOs that just show up. I think there were something like 65, 70 events around the conference. It's pretty full on for 2-3 weeks. There are people in Chiang Mai that just want to talk SEO, that would love to meet you, would love to grab lunch or a coffee or a beer or something, and just like stuff is happening. Like that's pretty electric, and it's the size of town where you really just run into everybody all the time. That's a special thing that doesn't exist. If you can't get to that special event, then definitely come see us at SEO Estonia, which is really set up for marketing, for networking, excuse me.
Yeah.
You will meet people. You'll have a good time.
So it's been an absolute blast, Kyle. It's been a long one, to be fair. So wrapping up on a few areas.
Some would say too long.
Yeah. Pop optimization, make certain you're doing it. Pop features, EEAT, make certain you're ticking all the boxes. Watchdog, make certain you've got that set up with regards to content freshness or if you need to be updating the content. Make certain by October, November, everyone's buying the SEO board game.
Oh, yeah.
And then IMG training, get yourself in it. And all the latest tests within IMG as well. So, Kyle, you've been an absolute legend. Where can people come to find you if they don't already know?
PageOptimizer.pro, IMG.courses, and KyleRoof.com. All those are ways you can get a hold of me.
Well, I appreciate your time, Kyle, and I've absolutely loved it. And I will see you very shortly, I'm sure, at another SEO conference in the next couple of months.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, cheers, Kyle. Cheers.